Hapaday, namaste, and thank you for tuning in today. Guahan and beyond, I'm Clare Calvo, and this is Conscious Living. This is our very first show, our first episode, and as you can see, well, for those of you who are watching, I understand, this is a podcast, so usually people call in, and usually people listen in, and they're not actually viewing it, but this is a little different. And just a little sidetrack for a moment. This was, when I first learned about podcasts, because I didn't even know anything about it, and I first came in for Jesse Rosario's show, Boca Talks. I came in presuming, it's just going to be audio, and I walked in, and of course I saw you, Uncle Ken here, and Jesse, of course, and then Jason Salas to the left of me with his camera. And I was like, I thought this was a podcast. And of course, of all days is when I came in just looking toe up, I just came from teaching a class or taking a class, so I was looking rough that day. But so now I know to come prepared and presentable for these podcasts. But as I was saying, if you're not watching and you're just listening in, I'm alone here today. There's no special guest. It's just, Uncle Ken and myself here in the studio. And that's on purpose. That was planned. We didn't get stood up or flaked on by any special guests. The producers of the show, Marie and Eli Monge, requested that this first episode just focus on the who, what, why, right? Who am I? What is this about? And why we're even doing it. So just the basics. And so let me break it down. Conscious Living, this show is going to be basically an extension of the Daily Renewal. And for those of you who are not familiar, the Daily Renewal is a 3 to 5 minute segment that runs on KUAM. And I've been hosting this show for about, I guess we got started about 4, 5, 6 years ago. It's a Select Care sponsored show. And so the whole concept behind the Daily Renewal was to just focus on all things health and wellness related. And I've had amazing guests on the show, everyone from, I've got a list here. I've had acupuncturists, chiropractors, dietitians, nutritionists, yoga instructors, of course, personal trainers, medical doctors, functional doctors, cirujanos, a hypnotherapist, my sister Raina, meditation teachers, a Buddhist monk. Shout out to Dada G. He was in, I think, twice. Counselors, health coaches, psychologists. So, you get the gist. Anything and everything wellness related. And I'm not just talking, physical wellness, but mental, emotional. So this show, like I said, Conscious Living, will basically take those interviews. So we're going to have a lot of them come back on, because what we have found over the past few years is that people want to hear more. 3 to 5 minutes is kind of short to squeeze everything into. So we've gotten, calls here at the station, and I've gotten emails and whatnot just asking more about certain guests that have come in and some of the topics that they have discussed. And so this platform is great to just, take those topics, take those interviews, and adding some length and some depth to those. That sounded a little... We're going to keep this PG-13. I'm not even a Scorpio, but that came out a little wrong. So this episode, I was asked to share a little bit about me and something that I get asked quite a bit. What got me into this, and just basically what prompted the wellness journey for me. And I was sharing with Uncle Ken earlier, this is kind of where my comfort zone ends, because first of all, I'm used to dialogue with, doing an interview, and usually I'm the one interviewing, so I'm asking the questions and pretty much getting the story, the information from whoever I'm interviewing. So this is, it's kind of like not the most, this is kind of the end of the comfort zone for me, because also I'm good at writing things or expressing things through movement, but to actually talk about my story is out of my comfort zone. But it's interesting how life works, because just last week, I posted something on Instagram, on social media, about comfort zones. And it's amazing how life, you put something out there, whether it's, the internet world or whatnot, and it's almost boomerang effect, right? It's like you put it out there with, even if it's just a thought, or for me in this case it was a post, and here it is presented right back to me. I put it out there how, how hanging out in comfort zones, you don't want to stay there too long because it doesn't foster that growth and transformation of going beyond. Sometimes you have to step out of the comfort zone to actually get see more results, right? And so here I am breaking that comfort zone, and so let me just get started with my story and kind of what got me into this whole wellness journey. I was living in LA for about 8 years after I was living up in the Bay Area for some time, and I at the time thought I was healthy. I was a professional dancer at the time and doing commercial acting on the side, and so I thought I was healthy. I was teaching, I was exercising a lot, I was very much in the fitness world, and I also thought I was healthy because I didn't eat meat. I was vegetarian at the time. However, I was a junk food vegetarian. So I basically had a lot of carbs, a lot of sugar, a lot of soy. And if you don't already know, soy is one of those main top 5 crops that are the most sprayed genetically modified. So wheat, corn, and soy are really your top 3 that are genetically modified, and just it interferes with your hormones and whatnot. So of course back then, this is late 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. I didn't know this. I thought, okay, I'm healthy. I I don't eat meat, and I work out every day. And I was also teaching at Taibo at the time, so I had a very active lifestyle. And my body had another idea. In the middle of the night, I woke up with excruciating pain. I'm just gonna really abbreviate the story because it's quite involved. And I went to the toilet, thought it was a stomach flu. It turned out it was just all blood. And so my friend picked me up, took me to Cedars-Sinai the next day, and what they basically found out, long story short, I was diagnosed with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. And that was such a general term. I didn't know anything about it. And so basically my lower colon was inflamed. And so I was given a prescription for steroids and a shot of antibiotics. And then after that, I asked the doctor, okay, so what do I do? Obviously it's my digestive tract, so what do I change in my diet? And he basically said that it was genetic, most likely, and that there was really, I just take my prescription and that should help me. And I think intuitively I felt like, okay, that's not really doing it for me. I felt like, okay, there's got to be something more to this. And just to rewind, a few years before that, someone in my family was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and even that was, was a process of elimination. They didn't know what it was initially at first, and then when they came to find out that it was Crohn's, she was out in the States at the time. She was on heavy doses of steroids, and when she was finally well enough, came back to Guam, and over the course of a year, she was able to, I think, lower her dose to the point where she didn't have to even take it anymore, the steroids. And she ended up coming across an acupuncturist, a traditional Chinese herbologist doctor, and she started incorporating these things into her lifestyle. She did Tai Chi Gong, so she did a lot of these complementary alternative practices, and it seemed to really help her. So, that was a few years prior to me getting sick, and so I thought, okay, if this worked for her, maybe I'll just skip the whole conventional thing. I ended up not getting the prescription for the steroids, and I don't believe in coincidences. I came across an acupuncturist, a naturopath, and those were the first two who I think turned me on to changing my diet. So what I found was with the naturopath, it had a lot to do with my digestive system, and basically what she diagnosed as an overgrowth of candida. So that's when I first really got into everything about Candida and about, I did a Candida cleanse, which is very different than from, like what we do now with the detoxes and whatnot. I basically, it sounds a little like, I don't know if it's kind of like paleo, but I wasn't eating meat at the time. But I cut out all sugar, including fruit. I only had lemon and avocado for fruit. This was going for 2 months. No fruit, just lemon, avocado, no grains. I was able to have quinoa because, as you know, quinoa is a seed. It's not a grain. And of course soaked. And it was just very precise. It's like you could have only this nut and it has to be soaked. You could have quinoa, has to be soaked. And vegetables, and there were certain vegetables I could not have, more of the starchy ones. So that's what got me onto like the very strict regimen of a diet, of a Candida cleanse diet. And of course I wasn't eating meat at the time, but I was able to incorporate fish. So this worked for a while, and I was feeling much better. But it just seemed like one thing after another, my body was changing and asking for different things. So first, when I did that whole Candida cleanse for a few months, I got better, and symptoms disappeared. And then it turned into more of I ended up having polycystic ovaries. I had OPS, or POS, polycystic ovary syndrome. And, I'm really just abbreviating everything into, because this was a span of like a year or two. And when that happened, again, it's not like I seeked out, I ended up coming across an alternative doctor or a complementary doctor who was a medical doctor as well as a naturopath. And he thought that we should check heavy metals. And so sure enough, they took, I don't even remember how many vials. I just remember seeing the tray of vials and almost fainting just looking at how much blood they were going to take from me. And when they came into the room with that, took all the blood, they found out that I had high levels of lead, mercury, aluminum, cadmium, barium, some really interesting, I understand the aluminum and whatnot, like when we put on deodorant and women, put on certain, whether it's facial, or things that absorb into the skin, and also from what we eat, right, when things are cooked on a pan. But the cadmium, barium, those were the things that I was like, okay, that's odd. Mercury, I went through the whole gamut. I had my fillings removed, and I was eating a lot of fish at the time because I was doing that Candida cleanse. That was the only protein I would take, eggs and fish. Everything else was vegetables and pine nuts. It was literally pine nuts, quinoa, vegetables, avocados, and, fish. So, that was another time I had to eliminate certain things. So really, I say all this because, it took illness to bring me to wellness. And I think sometimes, people feel like, because people have been like, oh, well, you do detox, you do yoga, whatever. I can't possibly do that, but I think it's important to put this out there because it's attainable for everyone. When this happened to me, I was not living a healthy lifestyle. I'll be the first to say. Obviously, I wasn't born doing back bends and like sipping on reishi and cordyceps and tree hugging and balancing chakras. In fact, it was just the opposite. I was very unhealthy. I had addiction issues. I had addicted to drama. So I was like in an abusive relationship. I was addicted to sugar. I was in the entertainment world and drinking more than I really needed to. I was smoking cigarettes for many years. And so, although I was not eating meat, I thought I was healthy. But I had all these other things that were harming my health. And so, a lot of times, you can't presume, and that's a dangerous thing. When you presume that someone else can do it, but you can't, you don't know their backstory. You don't know where they came from. And so I think that's why, because that was the first part of the healing journey, right? The physical aspect of me trying to, with nutrition, and then of course yoga. Yoga was a huge component in my life because it delved deeper. Because it came to a point where I went from irritable bowel syndrome to polycystic ovaries to lumps on my breast, and I think going to different naturopaths, acupuncturists, finding Dr. DeAndrea to do the 21-day detox in Santa Monica back in 2000, and then that's something up till today I still incorporate into at least once or twice a year. Optimum Health Institute. There are all these places that I was lucky enough, living out in California and blessed to have access to. And that's why when I moved back to Guam, I'm like, the first year of living here, like maybe the first 2 years, so many people I knew were diagnosed with cancer or even died of cancer. And that struck me deep. I'm like, okay, more needs to be done, and that's when we started the 21-day detox program in 2006. And, and just different things, we still don't have, there's certain things that helped me, and that was the whole purpose with Synergy. It's like, I want to take everything that has helped me, because I was really sick at one time. And, and not to say that everything's just wonderful now, we all have like dips and peaks at different points in our life, and I think every time you go through a stressful period, or, even like things were going well and I had a divorce. I went through a divorce about 5 years ago, and then it's interesting, the neuropsychoimmunology. It's interesting how your mind and your emotions play such a key role in your physical health and overall health. And so that's basically what I'm getting to next. It was the physical component, but then when you bring in the yoga and you bring in the meditation and all of more the energy work, more of like the energetic healing, we're holistic beings. So to say it's just, if you follow this diet and if you follow this fitness regimen, you're a-okay. Health and wellness is holistic. There's so much more to it than what we're actually feeding our bodies with food and drink and supplements. It's what we're feeding our mind, what we're feeling on a soul level. And I think for some people, they think this is really just kind of airy fairy talk, but there's science behind this. They've done the research about gauging people's frequencies before and after meditation. They've done a study that I found incredibly interesting, where they took the pH balance. That's how you could balance that, or you could check your acidity and alkaline level. And they took those little strips, those pH sticks, and they took everyone's saliva, and it showed, because usually you're supposed to be between 7.4, and they let people watch like violent something that was on a screen, and then they checked their saliva afterwards, and they found that their saliva became so toxic it was comparable to snake. It was poisonous. It was almost like that of venom. And so it's just amazing to see, and that's not even them experiencing it. That's just their perception of what's going on in a screen. So it really goes to show that when it comes to holistic health and wellness, it's so much more than just what we're physically feeding our bodies with what we eat and expelling energy. It's also who we hang around. It's who we, it's basically what we engage in, what we allow in our energetic circles. So this is basically just a bit of what got me on the wellness journey. So everything from the diet and nutrition, the 21-day detox, to yoga and meditation. And now we're kind of at a place where it's great because there's so much information out there, right? There's now, you see, when we first opened Synergy back in 2004, I think we were pretty much like the only yoga studio. And now it's beautiful and wonderful to see there's so many more, not just studios, but individuals, getting certified and teaching yoga throughout the island. And not just here on Guam, everywhere, yoga's become huge. And for me, like in my classes, I think it's important to, you have the physical practice, the asana practice, but then you also have the meditation, you also have the focus on the breath, the pranayama. And these were just different things that, especially the breath work, has helped me tremendously, physically, mentally, emotionally, I think in every way. Breath work, oxygenates the body, and everybody talks about the big thing now has been about inflammation, right? Inflammation causing disease and acidity causing disease, and just, it's great. I drink green juice every day, but you don't need, there's a way that our bodies are so miraculous, we could alkalinize our body on our own by doing deep breathing. And there's this one guy, Wim Hof, they call him the Iceman. I went to a Tony Robbins conference a couple of times, but one of the first ones I went to, he was there. And he's known as the Iceman because with his breath, he's able to regulate his body temperature. He's able to regulate his immune system. And it's basically, it's all mind, breath, body connection. And so those are the things that are completely fascinating, and those are the things that this show is going to be about. Be about health and wellness, and just inviting those guests back from Daily Renewal. But I want to take it one step beyond it, and have new guests come in and talk about other not services, but other practices beyond health and wellness, because really it's about bouncing around ideas, and just about life in general, and how each of us deal with different things. Because really at the end of the day, right, it's not whether you're vegan or keto or paleo, or if you're a CrossFitter or yogi. And that's one thing I have to just put this out there before we wrap up the show. One thing that's really a challenge for me to be around is self-righteous, kind of like, what is the word I'm looking, kind of like supremely critical of other people who are not necessarily subscribed to your philosophies or your beliefs. And that's why I want to make sure this platform is open. I don't want it, because I think people, when they think of synergy, or they think of conscious living or daily renewal, it's based primarily on certain types of wellness, of what we consider wellness, and yoga, and like plant-based this, plant-based that. And really, what works for me may not work for the next person, and what works for so-and-so may not. We're individuals, I mean, we have 37 trillion cells in our body, and that's constantly changing day to day. So not only are we not the same person as we were yesterday or last year, we're definitely not the same person as the next. So to say that this is going to be a magic pill if you follow this regimen and this and that, who knows? Maybe it will, but maybe it won't. And that's why we have to take it upon ourselves and feel empowered to listen to other people and what they have to say, and like a toolbox. Try it out, or the buffet line. Try this. If it works, great. If it doesn't, leave it behind. But and that's how I teach my yoga classes. I'm kind of like, you're here, this is your class. Whatever, whatever I call out as part of the sequence, you're free to try, but it's not necessary. You could just stay in Shavasana or stay in child's pose or whatever. And that's kind of my philosophy of life. I feel like, especially like on this type of platform, to have different people come in and share their different thoughts and beliefs, and they're going to be different. We're all going to have different beliefs and philosophies, and just being able to sit at a table, and even though having completely different philosophies, to at least respect each other enough to hear what has worked for them, and just see how that is empowering in itself. Because I think the time, or the days of looking for the help or something from someone else is slowly ending, and now we're really learning that we have to trust our own instinct and kind of try different things. But at the end of the day, who's going to know your body best than yourself, right? So I think I hope that this could be more of an empowering forum for people to come together and share ideas and stay empowered. So thanks for tuning in. This is our first podcast, and I look forward to joining you and you joining me again next week.